I just had my follow-up MRI, and my neurologist and the radiologist, they both said the same thing. This isn't supposed to happen.
Wayne, how did you find carnivore?
So I actually found carnivore kind of as a long journey. It started years and years ago. I've got a page full of notes that I'll keep looking down so I can keep track of everything. Um, but around 2015, I started looking for what made people healthy and what made people sick. We had some family, uh, unfortunate health in the family. Somebody passed away, and I just became curious what caused them to be sick. Why? Why did that happen? How come some people get sick and ill? How come some people don't? And I didn't really know anything about health or wellness or anything back then. I just was like everybody else, eating kind of whatever was on sale at the grocery store. And one of my friends that I worked with, he actually told me about keto. He told me his wife told him about this thing called keto, and I'd never heard of it before. Uh, it never occurred to me that there were different types of eating or different diets, if you will. So I looked it up, thought, oh, that's kind of nice because I love fat and I love salt, and I didn't know that I didn't need carbs. I didn't even know really what carbs were. I just knew that food was food and you ate it, and sometimes you felt good, sometimes you felt terrible afterwards. Never put two and two together. So I did that. I did that super strict. I tracked everything for a couple of years. Um, I lost a good 20 pounds. I was 170 pounds. I lost a good 20 pounds, kept the weight off, and I started feeling really good. Felt really good with the mental clarity. And from there, it just kind of, I kept looking into it more, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I started studying more and more about health and nutrition. And eventually, I got to a point where I was trying to do a carnivore diet because I heard about it on I heard about it on your channel. I heard about it on other YouTube channels, and I tried to do it, but I would go for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and the cravings would be out of this world. I would just feel that something inside me was trying to kill me with these cravings, and then it would just turn into a binge weekend of a whole box of cookie mix, a whole bag of potato chips, or whatever it was. It didn't matter. It would be anything. Um, all of the kids' snacks, I'd wipe those out of the pantry in an instant. And so further down the road, I did more learning, more study on it. Tried it several times, could never make it work. I just never could make it work without some of those carbohydrates. Lo and behold, I ended up running into health issues of my own. We can get into it a little bit, kind of the history behind that, but I ended up getting diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in November of this past year, or well, 2022. So almost exactly a year ago is when my second round of symptoms started. So went to the neurologist. They scanned the brain. They found the spots. They did some blood tests. Said, "Yep, you have MS." And they tried to explain it to me. I keep saying they. There's a little bit of a history with the four different neurologists I've been to. I only have one neurologist now. I'm down to one. So we went through all of that, and I just wasn't happy with what they were telling me. It didn't make sense knowing the little bit that I knew about nutrition and health at the time. They kept pushing the medications on me as kind of this is the only way you can deal with this. And I had since then learned and talked to a handful of people that had been on the medications, and the medications kind of worked for some of them, kind of didn't work for others. And I had never been a fan of any exogenous anything inside of my body. That's a whole nother story. But so then I really dug into it and decided to do it. figured out how to control the cravings that I was having, and plus having the medical diagnosis now, it really gave me something where those I had a lot more willpower that time around. So this past time around, it's actually been a breeze to say the least. But I feel like I had a lot of practice at it, trying to make it work for all of those years on my own, and then running into, of course, you type in carnivore information on YouTube, and well, now you get there's dozens and dozens of channels. There's a lot of great information out there, and I just consumed all of that and started reading all of the books. That I got a bookshelf behind me, all of the books on that, all the books that I could find on microbiome and everything like that. And I ended up deciding that I was going to tackle the MS thing on my own. Uh, and I just so far have opted to stay away from the medications, and I've just been using carnivore. I do a modified version of it, if you will. I also eat fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut in very small quantities for specific reasons for my microbiome, and trying to control that and rebuild my microbiome that way. That also helps with the cravings. I know that my cravings with that, I don't have any cravings whatsoever for any type of sugary things. Or the very last thing that I gave up was actually berries, raspberries, blueberries, strawberries. I would eat those, and I could eat one raspberry, and it would trigger me. Just one single raspberry would send me off the ropes. I would just get that sensation of my insides were empty, and I needed to inhale the world. And since using the fermented foods plus very strict carnivore, by strict I mean I haven't had a taste of anything in the past 6 months. Even if I make something for the kids, peanut butter sandwich or whatnot, I'll wash my hands. I make sure I don't even lick my fingers, type thing. That type of strict. So, and I've seen a lot of success. And I noticed on one of your recent interviews, the lady, she was talking about multiple sclerosis, and she was wondering if she would see radiographic improvements. And that's when I contacted you and her to say, hey, I know y'all don't know me, I'm out of nowhere, but I just had my follow-up MRI, and my neurologist and the radiologist, they both said the same thing. This isn't supposed to happen. It shows where there's the main spot, the big spot, and then 6 months later it's gone. And so I think that I've shown a lot of progress with that. And also, I know my symptoms have resolved, because multiple sclerosis isn't the only thing that I was trying to fix. I had, looking at my notes again, I had chronic migraine headaches back in 2004. I've always tracked everything. Like, that's just what I do. I track everything. I write everything down. I've done it my entire life. So it's interesting that I actually have really good notes going way far back. So I had chronic headaches. We're talking debilitating, lie in bed in agony for 2, 3, 4 days at a time, until I finally give up and start taking handfuls of Excedrin. That's the only thing that's ever helped the headaches. I had arthritis. My joints hurt. I'm 39 now, but 10 years ago, my joints were starting to hurt. That's not normal. Dermatitis, dandruff. I had terrible dandruff, snowflakes, big old chunks of skin. It's kind of gross, but it is what it is. Diarrhea, fatigue, couldn't pay attention, couldn't stay awake, eat a sandwich, and fall asleep at my desk, just dozing off 30 seconds in. It just couldn't do any of that. And I'm happy to say that everything except the headaches has completely resolved. After going, for me, it took absolute strict carnivore plus those fermented foods. It really did. The even 1 or 2 berries a day, or a cashew, anything like that, for whatever reason, it would just always. I tell my friends and family, it's like I just get crushed. I would eat something, and then 5 minutes later, I'm I'm ready to pass out. My wife and I we would go out to eat for dinner. I would eat something at the restaurant. I would have to make her drive home because I would not be able to stay awake in the car for more than about 30 seconds to a minute of getting back into the car. It would just, every time I ate, it just hit me like a brick wall. Um, and I think that actually had to do with a little bit of well, maybe not a little bit, maybe a lot of it, I don't know, of a histamine intolerance. And I just realized this morning, actually, my doctor mentioned something in a live stream he was doing. He mentioned histamine intolerance, and it occurred to me I don't remember the last time I had a reaction to any food like that whatsoever. Aged beef used to do it to me. I buy most of my meat through like mail order meat, where I buy 100 pounds and they ship it to my doorstep, and I put it in the freezer type thing. And I would get that aged meat from some of these places, and I would just eat it, whether it be a burger or a steak, and it would just wipe me out. I would hit that wall within 5 or 10 minutes, and it would take hours and hours for me to feel better. I'm like, man, this I'm trying to do the carnivore thing, but it's just wiping me out, and and so now I don't have that issue anymore, and I really attribute it to one being super strict on the carnivore, as far as no vegetables, no grains, no oils. The vegetable oils, that's another story too. And then and then I know for some people the fermented foods do great. They seem to be good for me. We're talking a small amount. We're talking, let's see if I can get it on the screen here. A small size, about the size of a tablespoon, just one scoop with a pound of meat. That's all it is. One little tiny piece with every bite is how I do it. Just very small amounts. My doctor calls it eating it kind of like as a condiment, not as a side, and that seems to have really helped me. And I'm really pleased with the results in my health, that it's turned everything around, if you will.
Congratulations. That's awesome. I mean, a massive list of improvements, but spots clearing up on the scans is just awesome. Just to clarify, when you say my doctor describes that as a condiment, are you talking about your primary care physician? Are you talking about your neurologist?
Oh no, I actually hired a doctor, Dr. Sean Amira. He specializes in he calls it biological optimization,
Mm.
and he's all centered around carnivore diet. He does do the ferments, lifestyle things, things like just naturopathic type things, getting your sleep, getting your maximum intensity exercise. I don't do long distance running anymore. He prescribes um, very intense exercise, if you will, sprints, weightlifting, things like that. Just trying to mimic what we think people did hundreds of thousands of years ago, type thing. Get up and run for your life type thing. So that's kind of where I got that from. And he treats visceral fat. So I got set up with I got an MRI. I'm actually between MS and getting my visceral fat checked out. I'm very accustomed to the MRI machine. It's actually very relaxing. So I don't get any emails or phone calls for that 1 hour of my day. So they take a slice basically through your abdomen. You can't see, but I'm chopping at my belly button right now. I can show you these images. I have them all put together for you if you want to see them. And you can see the visceral fat inside of you. It's highly inflammatory fat, deep inside of your gut. It dumps inflammatory stuff, if you will, into your system 24/7, causing all kinds of issues. And I think that those issues, everybody's body and system reacts to that inflammation differently. In my case, my immune system attacks my nerve cells, so that's what MS is. And in some other people, it may be some other type of a cluster of symptoms, or a disease, if you will. And I'm sorry, I keep looking at the screen over here on the side. I have my images pulled up, but and I had a follow-up MRI, and it shows the shape of my abdomen going from kind of like this to like more like an oval shape, and it shows a reduction in that visceral fat. And he's telling me that that reduction also, uh, there's no like studies, if you will, directly correlating visceral fat and multiple sclerosis together. But hot dog, if one didn't reduce and the other one got better, kind of as I was hoping. So yeah, it's super interesting, to say the least.
Can we take a step back for a second? This is all awesome news, but just to take a step back for a second. So, you mentioned Rebecca's interview from the other day that you saw, the lady that also has MS. Um, so, when you're talking about the treatment that the neurologists wanted you to take, or the medications they wanted you to take, is that similar to what they wanted Rebecca to take, which is just it's nothing that's curative, it's just basically managing the symptoms, or
Uh,
avoiding the lesions getting bigger?
yes. So the way that my neurologists, excuse me, had explained to me, and the way that I understand it, the one that they were recommending for me, it's very common. It's a B cell depleter, is what it does. So you go and you take a blood infusion. They pump you full of the medication. It depletes your B cells in your immune system. So you weaken your immune system. It kind of like just suppresses it to make it calm down so it stops attacking your nerves. And the hope with that treatment is that in the future, hopefully, you will have less attacks. You will have less permanent disability. But it's all based on a hopefully thing. It does show promise in a lot of people, but there's really no way to know until down the road. And unfortunately, there's a lot of mixed information out there that I found, where it's kind of one of those things that you take it and then you hope that it works, uh, 10 or 15 years down the road. So that didn't jive real well with me. I know there's a lot of people out there, they think I'm crazy for not taking the medications, and I can absolutely understand why they would think that. So I do respect that. But it just didn't make sense to take this compound in my body and hope that it worked. That, to me, that's a little bit scary, if you will. I had never taken any medication in my life other than headache medicine, the Excedrin brand. I don't know if y'all have that over there, but it's a common over the counter. Acetaminophen is the actual compound that it is. So that medication, I would have had to go get. It's extremely expensive. Even with insurance, it's very expensive. I would basically have been maxed out of pocket on my insurance for the rest of my life to take this medication right up front. So I was hoping there was something else that I could do myself, and that's where I kind of started connecting the dots between the gut, the cells. I'm looking at my notes again. I'm a very candid person. Your immune system, how it kind of freaks out from all there, and then from your gut, it goes wherever it goes. And in my case, my immune system decided to attack the nerve cells in my brain and spinal cord, which is classified as multiple sclerosis. So I figured I've done something to cause that, because I don't think that that's a natural thing that's probably happened for millions of years to people. So my thought was, try to figure out what caused my problem to begin with and try to fix that. And I started putting two and two together of autoimmune disease. Okay, what is that? It's where your immune system attacks. It's your own body. Okay, well, do I have any other symptoms like that? Well, I had arthritis, so that's an inflammatory thing. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that's it. I had dermatitis, which is kind of like psoriasis on my scalp. Well, I know that that's kind of autoimmune, right? And then the fatigue was related to that, and that can be related to autoimmune. And I'm like, what? I have all of these things that seem to be related. Um, what if I just try to attack, not attack, but take care of my inflammation? And so far, so good is what I can say about it. So
That's awesome. And like over 6 months, in the 6 months you've done it, like, did all these things kind of just start to like, I'm kind of thinking of a black hole in space where all the problems kind of just end up getting sucked away eventually. It's like pulling the carpet out, they disappear. Was it like over a period of about a month or 2 months, they just kind of it all just disappeared?
it's really interesting that you asked that question. The answer I would say is yes and no. I would love to be able to say I switched to carnivore and woke up in 3 days and had no issues. However, everything just slowly started to get better. The first thing that I noticed, um, my diarrhea disappeared. That's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. I've never had that in my entire life, and since 2004, I've had issues with that. So we'll leave it at that, I guess, or we can go to it. It don't matter. Um, my dermatitis, my flaky scalp. So this is the most interesting one to me of all of them. So since 2004, I would scratch my head, white snowflakes everywhere. It was gross. I couldn't wear black clothing. You can probably see some on me right now, and I'll explain that in a second. But my wife would take a vacuum cleaner to my scalp before we would go out when we were dating. She would do that, just scrub it with the vacuum cleaner in 3 minutes, and then I would like that, and just all over the place. It was you can't imagine how crazy that was. But I'm smiling because it has gone away, and it's just amazing. But that went away in 2 weeks. That took almost exactly 2 weeks. And I've tested it, and I seem to have found what type of food, or at least one of the foods that causes it, unfortunately, because I do love cheese. So non-fermented dairy products will absolutely do it. And uh, I did actually have a little bit of regular milk. And so I do have a little bit of scalp going on right now, or my dandruff going on right now. So if I were to scratch my head, you would see some flakes. But I know that when I get off of it, it'll go away. It's on a 2 week delay, and it's super interesting. If I don't have any non-fermented dairy for 2 weeks, it'll go away. If I have some non-fermented dairy, mainly just regular like milk, whole milk or cheese, it'll come right back. But I can have blue cheese that's fermented as long as it's still alive, and I can eat or well drink kefir, the fermented milk. Those don't seem to do it. So maybe there's something with the pasteurization there. I'm not sure, but I always I love to talk about that one because it's super interesting. Because I've done that experiment more than any of them, because it's like you can write down the day, and it's almost exactly 14 days. It's really weird. So I've done that several times. The fatigue went away, and it was not the fact that I noticed it was gone. It was the fact that I got to a point about 3 or 4 weeks in. I could not remember the last time that I just had that fatigued feeling, that feeling of sitting at my desk, and I just cannot keep my eyes open. If I have coffee or something, it basically, I feel like it has no effect on me whatsoever. I just can't keep my eyes open. And that I just noticed it completely was gone. I couldn't remember the last time I had it, but I think it was after about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks or so, to the point where I didn't even write it down when I noticed it was gone, type thing. And that's how a bunch of these things were. Um, the the arthritis that cleared up since for the longest time, my left knee, it would flare up and it would be so painful. I couldn't take my knee from bent to extended position. I even went to the doctor. They x-rayed it, they checked it out, and the orthopedic doctor there just recommended I avoid any activity where I bend my knee. That was the solution. So it was that or get surgery. And that wasn't for me. So I haven't had that knee flare up in a long time now. I
Sorry, I've got to interrupt with a comment there. I love the I love the treatment options you were given. Doctor, I'm having pain in my chest when I breathe. Just don't breathe then. That'll
That's
solve the
essentially
problem.
what it was. I still have the X-ray the X-ray images from that doctor's office, and unfortunately, I've been to this doctor 3 times. The same thing. I had hurt my wrist doing some exercise at one point, and it was the same thing. Just try not to bend it, and or get surgery or something. Or they also offered injections for something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll just deal with the pain, and that was the end of that. But I don't have any of that pain anymore, so it's that part is amazing. The Yeah, I've talked about the fatigue, the diarrhea, dermatitis, the arthritis, the headaches. My headaches, I would love to tell you my headaches are gone. However, they are not. I am still working on my headaches after 6 months. I think, based off of what I've learned about inflammation and my visceral fat, I think also based off of my headaches being my very first symptoms back in 2003, 2004, I'm pretty sure those are going to be the last thing to go away. And I think that that's going to be once I'm probably, I don't know how long, but another at least 6 months or a year, maybe 2 years until my visceral fat is way down and my inflammation is way under control. I'm only 6 months into it so far. So I think that those will hopefully resolve. If not, I'll continue to look for solutions to get rid of those. I do have certain triggers that I know for the headaches, but sometimes they just seem to come on for no reason at all. And if that's the case, then hopefully those will clear up. I can say I get substantially less headaches now. I usually get only about one every 7 to 10 days. Before, I was getting at least three every 7 days. So I would get one starting Sunday. It would last till Monday. Handfuls of Excedrin. It would go away. I would be okay for 12 or 24 hours. Then it would either the same one or a new one. I can kind of tell the difference when I think it's the same one coming back or a new one. It's sad to say I'm very experienced with getting these headaches, so that may sound odd to some people that they're different or the same headache when you have them subsequent like that. But I used to get them constantly. There was never a 3 day period I can ever remember without having to either take Excedrin or just have huge pain. Same type of pain that would start in my head, behind my eyes, up here, creep down my neck, go down through my shoulders and through my chest, and then like 4 days later, kind of just go away a little bit, just to ramp right back up. So I only get one of those about every 10 days now. And it, I mean, I still get them, but that's way better than I used to be. So I think that it's getting better, but I do think that my headaches are going to be the last thing that leave me, unfortunately.
And how did those affect you day to day? I mean, are you able to go about most things, or make you bedbound? How does it go?
In the beginning, uh, I would say I got used to them over time, but in the beginning, there were days when I missed work. There were days that I called into work. There were days where, at the time, my wife and I were dating, and I would go over to pick her up and end up just lying on the couch and sleeping for 4 hours because I would get there and it would be so bad that I wouldn't be able to go even go to the movies or dinner. There was no way I was doing that. And the at that time I was trying every over the counter medication you could, the Tylenol, Advil. Um, there's a ton of brands, Excedrin, Aleve, aspirin, whatever, and the acetaminophen and the Excedrin was the only thing that's ever touched my headaches. Nothing else does. Even taken way higher recommended doses than what's on the bottle, nothing touched it. The Excedrin, taking a high dose of that will touch them. But over the years, I just kind of got used to the pain, and I could function even when everything is just pounding on your head, and your vision is, you're just sitting there looking at your computer screen, and it's just, it's almost like your vision is just crushing in on you. And then you have that constant pain in your shoulders. It makes it where you can't focus on anything, even writing a paragraph, or reading an email. You can't get through, 5 sentences because the pain is just so bad, and you're just sitting there like this at your desk all day long. And but over the years, I just kind of got used to it, kind of just learned to deal with it, so that I could keep working and everything like that. But that was kind of miserable. But you kind of, I guess you just kind of get used to your normal after a while. So
Well, it's great to hear that they're less frequent, and
mhm.
here's hoping that they, as you predict, the visceral fat goes down, and you heal more, that it'll get better, and
Mhm.
eventually they'll be gone.
Yes,
Um,
hopefully.
so I'm sorry, but I want to take you back again.
Okay.
I just want to touch on your neurologist. I've got a couple of questions about that. The first question relates to, your neurologist was like, "This isn't supposed to happen. I can't believe this," kind of, when they saw it's gone.
Mhm.
Um, did they ask more questions? Were they interested in what was happening, or did they just say, "Oh, well, I guess sometimes there's an anomaly," or something like that? I mean, is it a blip in the force or something like that? It's like, what did they?
Yeah. So my current neurologist that I still have, I got rid of the others. Sometimes you just don't jive with certain doctors, and you have to part ways. We'll say that. But my current neurologist, he said they sometimes see it, but it's very rare. And he knew that I had opted to forego the medication and do the carnivore diet. And he was the only one of my neurologists that were on board with that. Everybody else, the other ones, they were totally not on board with that. They were total, hey, you should probably think about. They recommended the Terry Walls protocol, which is, I think that's more paleo-esque, a lot of vegetables and stuff. And then one neurologist tried to convince me that I should do a vegan diet for it. I had tried a vegan diet in the past just because I had fell for all the hype early on in my nutrition studies journey, if you will. And that took me about a month to realize there ain't no way. So I abandoned that idea. And then my other neurologist, they didn't even review my MRIs. They immediately said, "Oh, you've shown symptoms of MS. Let's just go ahead and get you on this medication." And that was it. She didn't even look at my MRIs, so I never went back to that one either. But my current neurologist, now he's great. He's on board with me. My do-it-myself fix, if you will, and he understands the visceral fat aspect of it, of what I'm trying to accomplish by healing my gut and ridding myself of my underlying inflammation. So he was very surprised, actually, that the spots went away. He kind of expected to see the normal, where you come back in 6 months and you have some of the same spots, and then if you're on the medication, those spots just haven't gotten worse, and they haven't necessarily gone away or lessened any, and then maybe you still have some of your disability. I should mention I'm very, very fortunate, and I'm very thankful that I don't have any like permanent disability. The couple of flare-ups that I've had have completely resolved, and I'm back to normal, quote unquote, if you will. I had optic neuritis back in 2016. That's normally the precursor that a lot of people get. They put me through the MRI machine. They didn't find anything back then. They told me to go home after they pumped me full of steroids for a week in the hospital. I had to stay there. So I went home. That resolved itself after that took about 2 months before I got my vision back in my left eye. It was super blurry in certain areas, kind of like my background. That's what the world looked like out of one of my eyes. And then the most recent one in November of 2022, my lower body from my hip crease all the way to my toes, over about a week period, went completely numb. I couldn't feel anything. It was that constant sensation of like your leg being asleep. Like if you're when you sit funny in a chair, maybe you sat on the toilet too long and you stand up and your legs all tingly and you limp around. I had that sensation in my entire lower body, and that's when I went in for this last round, or my first round of MRIs for this year, and that's when they diagnosed it as multiple sclerosis. But to get back to that, normally what they would expect to see is your spots that were there. They'd be able to say, "Yep, there's spot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever." They're not active, and they look okay with the contrast. They give you the gallium injection so they can see before and after, and to see if the contrasting solution has leaked out basically under MRI. I think they call it enhancement. And so when we saw my MRIs, I scrolled through my MRIs myself because I always have to figure out how to do everything myself. So I figured out the software, learned how to use the stuff, went online, learned the different brain type things so I could at least have a basic understanding looking and scrolling through my own MRIs to understand what I'm looking at. And the very first thing that I noticed on these MRIs is I thought there was a mistake. I thought they gave me somebody else's disc because I was scrolling through and I'm like, I'm not seeing these. There's no spots here, and I was confused looking at it because I didn't think that they were going to be gone either. I thought they were going to be just exactly what the doctor told me, where I would probably still see them. Hopefully, they're not enhanced, meaning they're not getting worse. But I couldn't find any of them, and I was like, well, I'm not a doctor. I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'm going to have to wait a week for the radiologist to get the report and go back and see what my doctor says. And I kept looking at those MRI images every night, trying to dig and dig and dig. The MRIs are kind of blurry, but zoom in, try to find it, go on Google, try to figure the stuff out, and I couldn't find them. And so I'm like, well, this looks really good. I'll cross my fingers, but there's no way that could be possible, right? And then I get the report back from the radiologist, and they say that they don't see them. They're not there anymore. So that got my hopes up that maybe, just maybe, the spots being resolved had been directly impacted by. I call it my do-it-yourself MS treatment. I know that sounds terrible, and a lot of people will be mad at even the thought of that, but that's what I call it. But the spots, they were gone. I had I think this is also an important point that I try to tell when I talk to people. The MRI machine I got tested on or scanned on the first time was a 1.5 Tesla machine. I knew that the university about an hour away has a 3 Tesla machine. So I told my neurologist, it's like, hey, I know I'm doing this myself and I don't want the medications. I want to get tested on the more powerful machine. Essentially, you get a higher resolution. You'll get more, instead of a layer here and a layer here, you'll get one, and then you'll get some layers in between. You get a much higher resolution. So I went over to Tampa, got scanned at the university, and that's where I didn't see my spots, was on that more high-powered scanner. So I feel really good about that. There was one small spot left on my spine, but I had already talked to my my neurologist about it, and he said there's a chance that the 3 Tesla machine will find something that the 1.5 Tesla machine never saw. So there is one spot that we didn't see on the first scan from earlier this year that showed up on my spine that did show up on the 3 Tesla machine, but the radiologist that oversaw the scan and reviewed it, my neurologist and myself, I've talked to all of them or both of them, and they both agree that it's most likely not a new spot. It was most likely just a very small spot that the 1.5 Tesla machine did not pick up on in the first time. So I've got that one. I've got that one marked. It's burned into my brain, and I'll be looking for it in. I guess it'll be another 4 months before my next scan. So fingers crossed. Hopefully that one gets better too. So only time will tell, though.
So you've got kind of, you're going to have an MRI like every 6 months just to check things how they're going, and okay.
Yes,
Oh, nice.
I'll get MRIs on my brain every 6 months for I think 2 years, and then after that, it's up to me and my neurologist to kind of decide if we want to lay off the MRIs, if we want to maybe do them once a year or kind of whatever he recommends, and then also what I want as his patient. So, but he's on board with the with the carnivore diet. As far as being something that can be very beneficial.
It's good that he at least is willing to entertain alternatives to just take this medication and keep your mouth closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you talk about how, like, what kind of impact has the diagnosis and then subsequent disappearance of the spots had on your family?
On my kids are too young to really understand. They're 7 and 8, so 2 little girls, and so they just kind of know it as Daddy's spot because I showed them the images and stuff. Because in the beginning it was very scary because I didn't know what was going on. I was like, oh my gosh, these. I mean, you'll see it in the image that you pop up on the screen, but you got this little dime-sized gray circle in your brain, and it looks terrifying on the image. And my wife feels better about it now that I've seen good results. And then I know that there's some people in my family that I never really talked to them about it, what their thoughts were on it, but you could kind of tell that they were a little bit iffy on, hey, you should probably jump on the medication. That's what everybody else does. And I don't know if they didn't quite understand the level of effort that I put into all of the learning and the research and building the confidence that I have to be willing to do something different, to be willing to have a different opinion about what I think is best treatment-wise for me. So, but now having seen the improvements in my MRIs and my overall health just being better, just how I feel from a day-to-day basis, they're a little bit more, I guess, thumbs uppy. It's kind of just one of those things. I don't really talk about it with a lot of people, what their opinions on how I should treat my health are, but it's growing on them. I think that it's growing on them. So.
If you were talking to someone else that has just had an MS diagnosis, would you be recommending to them off the bat, okay, well, you need to, investigate this more than just taking the drugs? You need to think about, what your visceral fat situation is and all that kind of thing?
Yes, especially after learning what I've learned and talking to a couple other people now that had similar situations where multiple sclerosis diagnosis was handed to them, and either the medications didn't work or they got worse with the medications, and on regular standard diets and nothing worked. And then when they switched and found carnivore, everything got better, including one other person that I know that also has seen great improvements with radiographic evidence of that, showing improvements in the brain and the spinal cord. It's pretty amazing. But I would absolutely say if somebody has that, even if they've been diagnosed years and years ago, whatever. I'm very lucky that it was relatively new, and I just happened to already kind of be studying health and nutrition and inflammation. So that kind of fell into my lap at the perfect time, if you will. But I really, it's almost a blessing in disguise to have that and then being able to deep dive into it and do what I'm doing now, as far as getting healthier. Because I feel like it was just an iceberg just floating around out there. And if I didn't find out that something was wrong, I would have continued down the same path of trying my best but failing at it over and over again until I really caused havoc inside of my body, something where it's possible that I would have had a stroke. I'm going to send you one more image I just remembered. I also had my doctor, Dr. Chanamera, I had a brain, he also scans your brain, and you could see a slight blockage in one of my cranial arteries, the main blood flow to the brain. It was slightly blocked. And we've seen MRIs before and after carnivore of those blockages completely opening up. But essentially what that was is I feel like I was partly on the way to becoming, you hear about these perfectly healthy people having a stroke in the gym, as things like that. I think because I've been doing fitness and everything, exercising like crazy for years now. But even with that, I had some buildup there, and I'm really glad that I got the diagnosis of MS, because it kind of opened my eyes, and from there I learned that I've got some other problems that I've got to fix. There's some stuff under the hood that's not going right, if you will. But I would absolutely say definitely work with your, well, number one, yes, go work with your neurologist, work with them, number one, but do take a look at the diet, lifestyle. Look into the carnivore diet. It works really good. It's really low inflammatory. It'll take care of a lot of the other symptoms. I know for me it has. I know for tons of other people. Some of the people that I know personally, as well as a lot of personalities online and a lot of their followers as well. A lot of people have a lot of success with it. I would definitely recommend it. I recommend it to anybody that'll listen. All my friends and family, they know that, like, I know the holidays are coming up here, and they know they would rather talk politics and religion with me than bring up nutrition. So I will go on a rant for an hour about the grocery store and how the food is destroying everything. And so yeah, it's good times at the family gatherings.
Nice. Um, so when you think about the future, I mean, how has your outlook changed over the last 6 months with a view to the future? Did you ever feel like kind of despondent about things?
I don't think so. My personality is not one to worry about anything. I rarely worry about anything. I'm that person where the building can be on fire, and I'll be that calm, collected person just trying to figure it out. That's my personality. So I say that I never worried about it. Maybe subconsciously I did, but I never sat and stewed about it, or felt bad for myself. As soon as that they said MS, even before then, because we were kind of suspecting it based off of just some of the symptoms that I'd had and my history with optic neuritis and everything like that. It's like I fit the. If you wrote down step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I hit step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we kind of knew before the official diagnosis came out. So I'd already been researching it, trying to develop what am I going to do about this? Because I'm not one to just sit around and take it how it is. I fix things. That's what I do. So I figured, well, this is my new thing to fix now. So I'm going to try to fix it.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So, Wayne, do you have any way to contact you, like an Instagram or a Facebook or a YouTube?
Um, I do, but I don't use any of them. Like I have a Twitter account. I guess they're X now. I'll email you that stuff. And mostly just my email address. I'm not even sure what my username is for my Twitter account. To be honest with you, I try to stay away from social media, but here more recently that I've been talking to more people, and they've been like, hey, you should post online about your experience. So that's why I'm talking to you tonight. You're one of the very first online personalities, I guess is what I would call you, to actually speak to about it. So. I'll get you some information. It's basically just my email address, though.
Okay, no worries. Well, Wayne, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us, and I'm so happy to hear you're doing well.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to email me or you and ask questions, I'd be happy to have a phone call with them or offer some insight, advice, anything that I could that help with anybody with. Because I know there's other people out there just like me who are there's got to be something different. There's got to be something better than the medications. And again, if this thing goes south and I have more attacks and it's just not working, I may jump on the medications just to try to be safe. But if I can do it myself, I would rather do that. And I know that there's other people out there just hoping and needing to hear that. And that's another thing that I started hearing once I started searching for like carnivore related to multiple sclerosis. I started finding little bits and pieces. There's not a lot out there, but I started reading a sentence or a blog post that somebody had written or a comment on a YouTube video that somebody said, I had MS and I tried carnivore and things got better. And then just recently now, I've actually came across a handful of interviews on different podcasts and shows on YouTube and whatnot of people actually talking about their experience. And it's really eye opening. And so if anybody does find this, there's definitely something there with carnivore diet and being related to the gut. I know I do a modified version of the carnivore diet. Hopefully, not everybody is too upset about that. I know all plants bad sometimes, but who knows? My plants are fermented and they help me out. So and I don't eat a lot of them. So I drink coffee sometimes too. Full disclosure.
Yeah. Join the club. Cheers, Wayne.